भाई और बहनों, मैं 40 साल का हो चुका हूँ और ये पॉडकास्ट दूरदर्शन की तरह सुनाई देगा आज से आपको। मैं हूँ वरुण दुग्गराला, मेरे साथ है सुचिता सलमान। कैसे चल रहा है मैडम आपका
Oh
इस
my
लॉन्ग वीकेंड का
God.
सफर? कैसा था आपके साथ?
Varun, you attempting to talk in Hindi is lajawab.
It's not
Seriously,
bad though. It's not bad. You got to give me that.
it is pretty below average. Let's just say that. Let's just say that. But
Fine.
how's your
We'll have.
40th
I
birthday, man?
take.
You look
Ah,
40. You really do look 40. And I mean that as a
I'm
compliment.
happy.
Like,
I'm happy
you
to look
seem like you
40.
wizened up.
Yes. No, good, good. I mean, it's good to have like a birthday pop on a long weekend. So just literally spent 2 days in a pool with literally
Mm-hmm.
like family and like a couple of close friends. So yeah, perfect start to my 40s. Did not get hungover. Drank a lot of tequila. What more can we ask for?
Wow.
And had lots of biryani.
That tequila must have been great. Must have been great and smooth.
Yes, it was very nice biryani as well.
Yeah. But that's it. That's like the beginning and end of your 40th birthday. There was no
No,
like
my daughter made me
realization,
this lovely like
epiphany.
she made me this lovely card um, from the child. And no, I did actually it was very relaxed. I wanted to have a relaxed birthday, and I had a relaxed one. No epiphanies. My epiphanies have been going on long enough now. They're just continuing
That
that
is
way.
true.
But
Yeah.
I will still continue to be the person I am. Fortunately or unfortunately for everyone, including you.
Oh my God. I was hoping you'd arrive as a changed man, but I will take you for who you are. Are you happy for 75 years of independent India? I think most people cared only about the long weekend, let's be honest. Let's be honest. But how does it feel, man? 75 years of Indian independence.
I didn't realize that 75 till like a couple of days before. I
Hmm.
guess when you kind of compare, I mean, I guess it's the only thing. You turn 40, you turn 75, you look back and how things have progressed. But I think we have obviously seen a large amount of progress. It's interesting to see. I think what is good for me is like seeing a lot of stories being put up online, which I thought, especially on LinkedIn, long trail of people posting about how they kind of came back to India and how all a lot of that stuff. While it might seem like moment marketing for individuals, but I thought some of those stories are very interesting to kind of read and understand. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, I mean, I guess we can always do better. I think that's the good part everyone's been saying, but
Yeah.
we have come quite a fair bit ahead.
Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to Amit Verma, who has that podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, and there's this kick-ass conversation with Karthik Murlidharan, whose episodes on The Seen and the Unseen I actually quite
Mm.
like. But yeah, you should hear that if you like 5 hour meandering conversations about all things Republic, etc., etc.
I like Amit Verma's podcast. I've actually been on one, the only podcast interview where I actually had to take a loo break between recordings was an Amit Verma recording. So I totally relate. But I mean, he goes super deep. So I got to check this episode out. But what's happened this week apart from 75 years and my
You turning
40th?
40. Oh my God.
Yes, my turning 40 is obviously the most important news. But beyond that,
Yes, of course. Narcissism aside, dude, so much and also like nothing at all. But I'm appreciating the slow week, man. There are a couple of like topics I'd love for us to double tap on maybe in the next episode. But Adam Newman, okay, news of the week. Adam
hmm,
Newman, the very publicly humiliated, kicked out, etc., CEO of WeWork, is back.
yes.
He has launched a company called Flow, which focuses on private real estate, and he has raised only $350 million from
How, yeah?
Andreessen
How?
Horowitz. Can you imagine? Valued at a billion,
I have a
doesn't even
question.
have. Yes.
Is Anderson Horowitz planning to produce season 2 of We Crashed? Is this the plan? Let's give him money so he will help us make another season for Apple. They're a
Yeah,
production house now.
that was the running joke on Twitter. But I mean, if you had to give credit where it's due, I think Adam Newman really, sort of created this new category at scale, which is co-working. Like, let's be honest, it's not like co-working didn't exist up until WeWork came
Yeah.
around, but they really sort of like
He packaged it
organized
right.
it, yeah, and packaged it in the right way. And to be fair, private real estate is like the single largest held asset class in the world. So,
Mm.
is it a larger than $1 billion opportunity? Of course, which is what Flow is apparently valued at, today. Is Adam
But what
Newman
is
the best
flow?
person? So basically it's like a, I don't know what it'll finally be, because no one knows what it'll finally be. Like the conversation right now is just that he's launching this thing that's going to be focused on private real estate, and he's raised this, like, exorbitant amount of money. But long story short, irrespective of what it will be, the category that it's in is, is insanely lucrative. And I think the
Mm.
second is, to give credit where it's due, Adam Newman gets his space. You know what I mean? Like he may have like really screwed up the business side of things. And to be fair, that the the burden of that doesn't only rest on him. It also rests on SoftBank, which I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen has been in the shitter because of their like terrible losses over the past 2 quarters. But
Mm.
yeah, my 2 cents on it, keeping the whatever, like the flamboyance of his life and his existence aside, it's not like he's a bad candidate to build something in real estate. He has a terrible
Yeah.
track record, but I think the good thing is anyone investing in him knows exactly what his Achilles heel is or isn't. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the blind spots you need to watch out for.
Yeah. It's also been I mean, I think also been a bit of a weird time for his perception, right? Because at some point the show, I feel at some point also kind of made him seem like a interesting person as well to kind of invest into.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that plays into it, but I don't think it totally put him down as much as people might believe. Because
Yeah.
when you're in the news or when you're out of it, sorry, being in the news is always going to have a lot more value in that sense of the word. So
Hmm.
I feel that could have really added to it. But it's also
So
been
let
a
me
bit of
ask you
a
this question,
yeah.
from a personal branding perspective, right? Do you think all publicity is good publicity? Like, do you think that diktat works?
Um, to a limit, I feel any form of publicity is good as long as it gives you that spike of okay, people kind of knowing who you are or remembering who you are.
Hmm.
But if it goes on for too long, it can't work. But
Hmm.
you people always love to see like when someone's really down and out, seeing them come back in. That those stories really work. I mean, like a Logan Paul's a great example, right? Literally a YouTuber who was delegated to the like being pushed out of the entire ecosystem to now being where he's at.
Hmm.
And in many other cases it has happened, so people love to see someone kind of come back. It's a great story. So but you got to think about the fact that you can't stick onto the same line long enough, because at some point it's going to go sideways and you can't come back from that. So that's the line according to me.
True, true, true. What's next?
It's been a bit of a sad week, right? Also, we had Rakesh Junjunwala who passed away this week. Arguably, India's most famous investor, who also did not like to be compared to Warren Buffett.
Buffet, of course, of course. What a kya actor oh, bro, kya actor oh. Ladies and gents, I'm just going to be honest. We like rehearsed this joke before. Varun redid it, for your benefit. But this is, how much care we have with respect to our production quality at Think Fast, where we rehearse our jokes. But
Yeah.
Buffett is the last name. Yeah, he shirked that off a fair bit, right?
Yeah, and it's been and considering we were just talking about him last week about the Akasa airline kind of
Aksa,
being
Aksa. How can you forget?
Aksa airline in the planning, and also like it's a great story, right? Of just like from an investing perspective,
Hmm.
super like I think we're the most respected in the Indian space for that. Always has had an interesting point of view, and according to our great research with community, he began investing in 1985 with just 5,000 rupees, and as on date he's at a 5.8 billion dollar net worth when he passed away. So yeah, it's I mean it's sad, but what a journey is what I would say.
Yeah. And I know he got into hot water last year when all the tech IPOs were happening, because I think
Mm.
he shat very publicly on a couple of companies. But I feel like that's the thing with a lot of these personas, right? They come with their own eccentricities and nuances. Like Warren
Yeah.
Buffett, for example, has been very cagey about what he thinks of crypto at large, and again, like used all kinds of interesting words so to speak, to describe what his take on crypto is, and the Indian parallel, which is Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Even the way he describes some of these stocks, whether it was Zomato or Paytm, let's just call them colorful descriptions. But you know what I mean? Like, all these guys have their own eccentricities, but I think that's what it is about investing, right? Somewhere you need to take a stand, and I think if that's one thing that we can learn from Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, apart from obviously playing the long game and
Yeah.
investing in very quote unquote stable long term assets, he's a guy who really took a stand for the things that he believed in, very 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 sternly, even if it came at the cost of someone else. So lots to learn from a great life.
Yeah. So again, like on the continuing side note, Salman Rushdie got stabbed, but thankfully he seems to be stable as of now. So there's been a lot going on. But back to business. Do you live on rent or do you own your own house, Suchita?
Bus, great intro. I knew this was coming. No, I live on rent. I'm a very proud renter,
And do you have
whatever
a
it's called.
personal GST number?
Fortunately, I don't, because this damn thing story that you're
So
talking
you
about does
might
not
not have
apply
to
to
pay
me.
18% GST tax on house
Bach
rent. So
bhai,
there was a
mittu bach bhai.
notification that might happen. So and I think the finer details are, and I'm still, I think, still developing. And as much as what we've read about is that if you are an individual who has a GST number, you attach GST to house rent, which again I think makes it confusing again. That what if that person chooses not to, but makes somebody else in his house register in their name? Then you don't have to pay
Mm-hmm.
GST. So immediate questions come to mind, but so that is one more case. But be careful, don't get your own GST number if you don't want to pay tax. But I think it's important to pay tax because we're 75 years old as a country and you need to do your bit for the nation. So don't shy away from paying tax.
Yes, and with that great note, Varun, why don't you tell us how you've avoided paying tax for the past 40 years of your life?
I have always paid my tax properly and in
Okay.
all appropriate manners. I'm a very
Yes,
like good citizen of this nation.
of course. And
Speaking
like
of
every good citizen, you also have an account in the Cayman Islands. Be honest, be honest. Tell our listeners.
speaking of good citizens,
Varun, just
what are your
ignore
thoughts
me
on
at this
Indian
point.
matchmaking season 2?
He's just like, shush, woman. What are my thoughts on Indian matchmaking? I actually was very underwhelmed, man, by the show. I thought, like, Seema Tapadia will be, rock solid in another zone altogether, as she was in the first season. I found it quite average, yaar. Aparna was as badass as she is. She's really funny. What a cool chick. We all realize that all that Nadia wants is, a good fling. But yeah, nothing extremely interesting or even funny for that matter. Like people
I've only
calling
been
each
through
other
an episode, so
ugly.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, very underwhelming. Like it almost seemed like, but it ended on a kick-ass note, because now, spoiler alert, can I spoil it for you?
Spoil it, I don't care.
Third season,
Hmm.
Miss Seema Taparia goes to London. So now she's diversifying her net of
Very good.
NRIs. Yeah, Seema is at it
Very good.
again.
Very good. Actually, I think we should let our listeners know at this point of time that today's episode is going to be an entirely, no, it's going to be a long intro. All our segments are going to be like the intro continued. And since we have been told we've gone very long on segment one, we're going to take a break and continue this intro on the other side of this break of this show called Think Fast in my 40th year of existence, which is momentous for not just the nation, but for the world and the universe in this metaverse. Or is this the metaverse of madness? I don't know what it is, but I'll see you on the other
Stop
side.
talking. Yes.
Hello, hello, hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On A Sip of Finance, Priyanka doles out tips on how to choose the right mutual funds. On The Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to Apar Gupta, Executive Director of Indian Freedom Foundation, on the need for a law to protect personal data. On Ikaduka Economy, Abhinav talks to Vikram Limse, CEO of Helicon Consulting. The duo discusses the impact of economic recession on our lives. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita give their take on TikTok venturing into music and what that means for its counterparts. And on A Niche Thing, Anish talks to the founders of Plant People, Komal Garg and Angus Bhalla, on how to select the right indoor plants. Once again, would like to remind you all about our merch. There's some amazing stuff out there. Please go to our website, ivmpodcast.com, click on the shop tab, and do check out what's available there. I'm sure you'll find something you like. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And also, I'd like to remind you all to please tell a friend about this show if you're enjoying it. It will give you somebody to talk to the show about. Yeah, it really does help us too, so that too. Also, please rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, and you can check us out on YouTube. We have a page on our website which basically lists all our YouTube channels. Please go check that out. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Boat Lifestyle, Small Case, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where we are still continuing our long introduction into segment 2, and 15 minutes we spent or something of that sort in the first segment. But we'll continue this introduction even longer to tell you that Amazon has acquired Roomba, the vacuum. Do you have a Roomba at home?
Yaar, I don't, yaar. Why do you ask me these leading questions? Are you
No,
turning
but I'm
40?
asking this question.
Do you know that India is 75 years old? Do you know who stabbed Salman Rushdie?
So I actually have had 2 of those robo ones. So the first one, unfortunately, didn't make it. And I have a tendency to name my Roombas. My first Roomba was called Sunita. The second one is called Ramlal. Ramlal, Sunita have served us well, but they also are very creepy because they know the entire mapping of the house. They know where everything is. And so if Amazon acquires Roomba, and they've acquired it for like 1.7 billion, one of the conversations happening online is that you realize that Amazon now literally can hear and map your entire house because the Alexa listens to everything. And now the Roomba has the map to everything. Bacha kya hai? What is left? You tell me what is left, Suchita. What is left? The nation wants to know.
Nothing at all, man. No, but I think this is a good acquisition for multiple reasons. So one
Oh, for
is
sure.
we discussed this in past episodes, but Amazon is reducing its focus on its private label, so solely Mo or whatever it's called. There'll be a lesser dependence on that for multiple different reasons. Andy Jassy is obviously thinking of Amazon and next steps around Amazon in his own way and from his own point of view. But long story short, I think this is actually what the Thrasio quote unquote is like, and not to sort of digress back into the Thrasio conversation, but I think the Thrasios of today, tomorrow, day after will end up being marketplaces. And you see that happening already, right? You see that happening with their acquisition of iRobot. You've seen that happen with a bunch of other marketplaces where they've picked up the best performing brands and put a lot of money into it to drive more success and growth. But net makes sense. Is in a category that Amazon dominates at, and I wouldn't be surprised if Peloton is the next thing that Amazon or one of these large marketplaces ends up whipping up and buying.
Speaking of Peloton, did you read the news about Peloton and SoulCycle? What a great way to give me a segue. A great one.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
A good lead up.
First off, I was the one who shared this link. Did you read the link about Peloton and SoulCycle? Yes, I
Yes.
did. Varun, why don't you tell me what the TLDR of this link is?
Nothing. They're not been doing well, and now they've announced layoffs and store closures, and this entire hoopla. And I think SoulCycle and Peloton, I know they club together because they both use cycles, but I feel they're very different
Mhm.
business models, right? SoulCycle
Yeah.
was almost a company that was ruling the roost in that sense pre-pandemic because they had those studios, people kind of going in there and doing those cycling classes. Peloton was pushing it towards your home for you to kind of buy the unit and have it at home and all the content that is on it. But at some point, I'm gathering both haven't really worked as much. As I think
Mhm.
post-pandemic, people are going back to the gym. Also, I think the valuation that Peloton kind of came to had to come down, right? It just became insane in terms of how much that
Yeah.
value was at for the company, and it wasn't sustainable. So if you look at it in that sense, I mean, this does make sense. But
Mm.
one of the big questions, and I know that there's been a conversation, especially in Silicon Valley, for a long time, saying why has Peloton not been acquired yet? Like, why would, or has someone tried to acquire them yet? And there were conversations of Apple should acquire them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just sad to see. Like, because it's a really good brand and they have a great product and their content is fabulous. Just like I feel that too bloated in terms of valuation.
But this happened with a lot of companies during COVID, no? I mean, if you think about
Yeah.
Zoom and how,
Yeah.
much Zoom sort of grew, I think the other one that's going to be biting the bullet sooner than later will be Shopify, because again, another
Yeah.
company where, everyone was screaming from the top of the roof saying the writing's written on the wall and the future is digital and this, that, and the other. And you're seeing a very healthy rebound. of retail, especially in a couple of key categories. So I think there's the same, COVID enthusiasm. EdTech is another great example of,
Yeah.
how people went balls to wall in a category that would naturally come back to offline, once the excitement around work from home, etc., sort of settled. So
Hmm.
long story short, it's not just them, though obviously they've been coupled. Soul Cycle's been having problems for a while now, for multiple different reasons. One, obviously, COVID would have wrecked their business. But Soul Cycle had some issues around the CEO or founder, if I'm not mistaken. And, they've also been reducing the number of offline, outlets that they have.
Yeah.
Soul Cycle's
Yeah.
formula was also starkly different from Peloton, but seems like, like you said, a COVID fad, which, like a lot of other fads, is now biting the bullet left, right, and center. But do you think this is like a alarm bell for fitness, for at home fitness as a category at large? Because remember, there were those
Yeah.
mirrors and all also that came up at around the same time. I don't know what those are up to.
Yeah. And what you're saying is actually on point, because I feel fitness at some point, especially post things opening up, that's one of the things people went back to the most, right? Because that's where like people found a sense of community. You want to be in that gym, you want to be in that CrossFit space, you want to go for that running club. So I feel the only things that are working are which are extremely hybrid. And the problem with Soul Cycle is it is in a studio. With Peloton, that cycle is in your home. So at some point, the ones who survived have actually used the software and kind of given you things to do, but you can kind of flip from one to the other. But I guess the entire thought of people will never go back to gyms, never go back to these things has kind of gone away. But I guess for Soul Cycle, that also is the other extreme where everything is largely offline, and even that doesn't
Yeah.
work. So definitely a rethink in this sector needs to happen. And more than anything else, I feel they also are very like one trick. Although I know Peloton has a bunch
Ponies.
of other things,
Yeah.
it's still a cycle based thing, even though they have weights exercises and all that stuff there.
Hmm.
So I feel at some point you got to kind of think about how do you kind of be this hybrid enough that people don't get bored, because when you're working out
Yeah.
alone, unless you're super committed, you do tend to get bored. And I
Hmm.
feel that's really another point that might have happened. Again, I'm generalizing here, but or hypothesizing, but
I,
that's my
I I
thought.
think I think one final like 2 cents that I'll add over here is, there's this tendency that founders have to ride the wave when, the wave is at its peak, which you get, like when there's momentum, you want to double down on it. But I don't know, man. I'm of the school of thought, which is when there is momentum, that's actually the best time to stay shut, because things naturally, as it happens with every business, end up crashing, right? Now
Mm.
obviously crashes in terms of their magnitude differ from business to business, but and just to give you an example, right, I have so much respect for what Vijay Shekhar Sharma has built with Paytm. He literally
Yeah.
picked one of the toughest categories, and just to sort of build out operationally, and obviously crushed it at that. But he was also one person very like vocal about his success, right? And I
Mm.
think the Peloton guy did the same thing. When Peloton was speaking, he was literally in every single publisher newsletter. Like he was everywhere. You know what I mean? Talking about, oh my god, we
Yeah.
figured this secret sauce out and we're gangsters. Toby Lutke did the same thing. So my lesson from all of this is, when things are going well, that's actually the best time to keep shut. And keep building, which is what Eric Yuan, the founder of Zoom, did. Like when
Mm.
everyone was, all gaga over Zoom, he was actually pretty quiet, which is why you don't see Zoom come up so much when you talk about crashes or,
Yeah.
valuations tanking, this, that, and the other. But, one quick learning on that over here.
Yeah, just one thing to add is I think it's also about finding a way to diversify your revenue stream, right? Even if you're feeling you're getting a bloated valuation, can you build more verticals which over time can kind of add to that? I mean, it's an unfair example, but like look at an Apple, right? As much as they might say at some point their hardware might not be this thing, they have really focused on services as a clear
Hmm.
vertical and many other things. So you got to kind of think about that as well. And I don't think Peloton really did that as much. And really trying to
Yeah.
find alternate streams of revenue, which always helps in the long term. Um,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Speaking of the long term, HBO puts their India plans on hold. They're obviously going through a bunch of stuff globally because of the merger between Warner Brothers and Discovery. But this is like a company that had literally hired a ton of people in India, really senior people, building towards a launch, and now it's on hold while Warner and Discovery figure out how it's going to kind of play out.
But this was bound to happen, no? Because it's just become so
But then why would you hire a
one.
team? Is my question.
I feel like everyone approaches these things with the best intent, so maybe the intent was actually to build things out. Similar to, I mean, one could argue, why would CNN spend $300 million in building out CNN, whatever it was, Plus or whatever
Plus,
it was called,
plus,
their
plus.
streaming. Yeah. So I think the intent is always to, do right by your strategy. But I think in scenarios like this, it's really important to call it when things may not be panning out the way you need them to, which seems like exactly what's happened over here. And I don't think HBO Max is just cooling off in India. They're cooling off in the US as well. Because how much money can you continue spending in very expensive original programming if, when you're actually running ads to acquire a customer, the ad that HBO Max is running is somewhere also, sort of impacting the advertising that one of that Discovery, whatever their plus, Discovery Plus is what
Plus,
it's called,
plus,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, these guys are so innovative. Everything just has a
Yeah,
plus in front of it.
everything is plus.
Yeah, but
Disney Plus, Discovery Plus,
yeah, yeah.
CNN Plus.
Uh, Yes, no, but so going back to the topic, I think it's just getting extremely expensive to acquire customers. Just one side note on this before we get to your point of view. You know what I read today? I read that Snapchat is actually crushing it. So Snap also has a content subscription service, which has been growing extremely well for them, where they charge their subscribers $3.9 a month or some such thing.
For what
But the
content?
silent I don't know. I think it's original. I am not a Snapchat user, but I can pull up that article and send it to you, and we can also add it to show notes or whatever. But Snapchat subscription service is actually like the silent killer, where there's obviously they have their own proprietary users, and it seems like they figured out proprietary content to provide to those users, at a subscription fee. But your 2 cents on this?
I think another angle, especially from an India perspective, is, and I think it's happening globally in a slightly different way, is that everyone's realizing, especially the global players, that India is a market where they can't come in with just international content and win. You got to have a very strong foot in the door, strong investment into local content, right? Look at an Amazon Prime, great example of them having really dug deep and arguably like best content in terms of just what they're able to kind of scale out. I know Disney is doing that a lot more now with Hotstar going towards originals as well. Although you don't know how the IPL streaming loss is going to change stuff over there. And we've spoken enough about how Netflix has struggled in this market. So I feel for an HBO, it also could have been top of mind. And once again, we can't just come here with HBO content and expect that to give us that initial burst. We'll have to invest into originals and building content, etc. Does it make sense? While a Discovery Plus is already in India, already has original content, is already doing localized content. So maybe that could be, I mean, what you said is correct. You can't do that, but you're consolidating. So if
Yeah.
you look at it globally, people are talking about how much all of these things are going to get consolidated, because today you can go on to an Amazon Prime and watch Lionsgate play on that. You can now watch all your HBO shows also on that. So
Yeah.
eventually we'll come back to a few platforms is what I'm sensing. And especially in markets like India, unless you're deeply invested in the local ecosystem of creating content, the international stuff
And
isn't
one
just going to work.
related thing to what you said, right, which is talent will always seek distribution. So,
Yeah.
if you are a talented scriptwriter, producer, director, whatever else, you're going to seek platforms that maximize distribution, because that's what
Yeah.
the name of the game is. So, somewhere it goes back into a bidding war. But I just pulled out that article about Snapchat. Incidentally, their originals or their subscription service is also called Snapchat Plus. But
क्या
they
बात
have
है.
oh my god, क्या original thinking है यहाँ पे. But
Amazing.
just reading this out, Snap Originals has amassed an impressive roster of talent, including Ryan Reynolds, Will Smith, Kevin Hart, and a bunch of others. And Snap Originals team launched shows starring rapper Megan Thee Stallion and TikTok star Addison Rae, both pulling in 16 million viewers each this year. So, ladies and gents, we link to the Quartz article, but Snap seems to have figured out its formula of original content plus short form plus, Gen Z millennial
Very similar to
users.
Quibi, right? Quibi was that
Yeah,
platform that I forget who launched that, but it died like literally on like launch.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Forgot
yeah.
who launched that one.
That iconic guy, yaar.
No,
The
no.
oh,
Which company launched it? Did
it
AT&T
was
launch
it
it?
was a startup, bro. No, no, it was a startup. Like the ex CEO of eBay, Megan something, and this very famous
Jeffrey
yar.
Katzenberg.
Yes, yeah. Both of them launched it, raised $1 billion, and that went, kaput. But it was their startup. It wasn't launched by another platform.
Oh, okay. I forget. I thought it was connected to a network. But yeah, so I think it's interesting to see how content moves because the platforms became too many, and now you're kind of seeing them kind of tighten up. So at
Yeah.
some point, you got to kind of, I think they'll all start to rethink how this works. And I'm keeping an eye on Netflix because for the ones like, okay, they've really changed the way this works.
Hmm.
I feel this is going to be interesting to look at. And on this note, as Jalasmi has told us, that we have again, this introduction is still continuing, and we will continue this introduction further into the next segment. But till then, we'll take a break and be right back on Think Fast. Welcome back to Think Fast, or rather, should I say, welcome to Think Fast, because this is still the introduction of this show, continuing into our third segment of this week's episode. Kitna lamba introduction. Wow, amazing. This is like watching KGF 2. Have you seen
But I
KGF
like
2?
this. No, I have not seen KGF 2, but I like this. Like, I like that we're going through so many very different topics as quickly as is possible and giving
Maybe this
people
should be the new
bite-sized
format.
information.
If you guys have listened to the show so far and if you feel this is the best format for us to follow, please let us know by tweeting to us
Yes,
on
Queen.
Twitter. That's where you tweet.
Yeah. And use
Or
hashtag long introduction.
hashtag long and hashtag think fast and at the rate IVM podcast because IVM will have to figure this one out for us.
Yeah, yeah. Or
But moving
hashtag
swiftly ahead.
introduction used a Bonamed. There you go.
I
You
don't need
get
boner
it?
meds anymore. I
You
am the
get,
boner med.
Abhi, not you, Behen. Our introduction. Oh my God, Varun. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. Focus, focus.
In other news, not to be confused with detergent, crypto money laundering has become a problem yet
Oh
again.
my God, that joke was awful.
This is
I
what happens
just
to people who
can't.
turn 40. Their humor gets
I
worse.
can't. I can't do this. But in any case.
So, in reality, the news. Okay, got to laugh for a second, but so the news basically is the enforcement directorate is probing at least 10 cryptocurrency exchanges for money laundering. About they're saying more than 1,000 crores has been identified as proceeds of crime, etc. That's been kind of moving across. And money laundering and crypto have been associated together, right? Because it was decentralized, and I think globally this is a conversation that kind of goes around as to how what was not through of normal channels, if you want, or traditional channels, has kind of been caught on here. But first reactions on this laundering.
I mean, I like hate to say it, but this was bound to happen.
Yeah,
It's just you've got too many people who got rich too quickly and
yeah,
will do whatever they have to make sure they don't pay 18% GST on their rent.
yeah,
But you know what I mean? This was just a formula waiting for some disaster like this to come around, but just a really bad look for crypto at large. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, hence, the rulings of the RBI and this, that, and the other don't seem unsurprising, right? Because
yeah.
shit like this happens when there is so much money at stake. But regulation is needed desperately. And this Wazirex and Binance thing was just embarrassing for everyone combined.
Yeah,
So,
and I think
yeah.
this also connected, right? If you think about it, if some people are saying that they don't have ownership or they never bought it and stuff like that,
Hmm.
could it almost be tracked back to this? Because at some point you
Hmm.
don't want to take the responsibility of the probe, and you're kind of like, this is not my problem to deal with to the other person, and I feel that could also be connected. But even and this brings back a core problem, right? Is that it's decentralized, which means you're not supposed to regulate it. But on the other end, if you don't regulate it, it leads to things like this. So where does that balance really lie is the question. And what happens to all the crypto that's actually been bought? And I don't think it's going away, but I mean there's some very serious fundamental questions that need to be answered before everybody goes like gung ho about this is the future. But
Hmm.
how are we going to move towards the future in a structured manner, even if it's decentralized? Is I think the big question here. And even if you're looking at the responses across Binance, etc., it's still that passing on the of of the issues is still going on. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's not it's like you said, not a good look.
At all. And I don't know why, but like I feel like Desi just have the worst reputation when it comes to things
I
like
agree.
this.
I agree.
I feel like if there is a scam to be, created, we just find ourselves standing in a line to like scam land. But yeah, those are my 2 cents on the story. That fortunately I own no assets in, but I am glad I own no
Same,
absolutely no
same.
assets in at all.
Speaking of my favorite stories of the week, although I did not speak of it, I'm speaking of it now. A man uses Tinder to find sisters to celebrate Raksha Bandhan with. It is
This
by
sounds
far
like
the
you.
most.
Varun, you did this, didn't you?
I
This
have,
was
I
your
have,
40th
I have
birthday
a
present
sister.
to yourself.
I have a
Yeah,
sister.
but
My
maybe you
sister.
wanted three more, yaar.
My lovely
Let me
sister who
find
gave me a
four
Rakhi which
sisters.
had cool bhai written on it because she thought it's a joke. I guess this sense of
Oh
humor
my
runs in the
God.
family. I literally had cool
It
bhai. I'm
really
like,
does.
are you
Thank you,
serious? She's like,
uncle and
yeah, I
auntie,
thought it's
for
funny. I'm
your
like,
gene
thanks.
pool. Yes. No, but tell us more about this
So
super
this guy
crazy story.
so basically this guy wanted to find sisters who he could try Rakhi to. So he was on Tinder, and he actually put up saying looking for a sister to hang out during Raksha Bandhan is what he put up in his bio, and
Hmm.
later put up saying thanks to Tinder now I have like two sisters, both of whom I met on Tinder. This year all of us are planning to get together and celebrate Raksha Bandhan, exchange gifts and stuff. I am so excited. This is all kinds of wrong. I mean, I have so many things to say which I will not say on public forums, but this is just weird. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but very innovative. I feel like all these dating platforms are being used for all types of things at this point in time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like hookups isn't even like scratching the surface. It's everything from, you told me another story also, how this
But why is
person
he looking
used to
for a
find
sister to
a,
tie Rakhi to? So he has to give money too, which anyway I think is regressive in the fact that you have to give money. But in general, I don't understand the logic. Why is he looking for a sister on Raksha Bandhan? Like you can just go like find friends. I understand that. It's called social
yeah.
networking.
I don't know, maybe he has no friends, Varun. Everyone isn't as magnanimous a personality like you.
But he said, no,
But
I'm going back to the post. I have felt the FOMO for most of my life during Raksha Bandhan as I do not have a sister. No one to tie me Rakhi and me gifting them stuff.
my
That's what
God,
I didn't read the first line. He had FOMO. This is what FOMO does. People go on Tinder and find sisters so they can tie Rakhis.
this
But
is a new type of
there is
FOMO.
another great story in this article, which is that in June there was a man from Kerala who went on Bumble, the other dating app, to look for an apartment in Mumbai.
That's insane.
And
But I
his profile
appreciate the
said not a
hustle. I appreciate
sapiosexual
the
looking
hustle.
for a flat in Mumbai.
Oh my God, I love this. So diverse. What a great use
This is
of
the
dating
real
platforms.
metaverse.
Yes, exactly this. But
Or
what's
is
our
it
next
a
story,
met her
man?
worse? Met her worse.
Oh my God, I can't. I can't do this. This is too many bad jokes. Okay,
In
but
one episode.
the next story is branding in
The next one is
films,
actually on. Yeah, so
right?
I think the next one is interesting one because if you, I know you've seen Darlings and I've seen Darlings as well. There's a lot of conversation online as to the number of brand integrations that really showed up in the movie. None of which I felt were as bad as some of the ones which I've seen in the past, which I will obviously talk about at some point. But there were a lot of them there, including like I think Kama Ayurveda was something people spoke about. There was obviously basmati rice, which is I think Dawat, Mintra, a lot of other stuff there. But what were your thoughts about how the integrations were done and just the number of them? I think last quarter 45, 40 odd I think integrations.
So, I don't know, man, but this calls to where OTT production, content creation, etc., is going. No matter what anyone says, it always comes down to advertising. And
Yeah.
this isn't a new formula, right? Like this has existed from, the good years of Karan Johar in Bollywood, all the way down to obviously what we're seeing happen right now, where there is too much content and not enough subscribers of the same. So logically speaking, can totally see where it's coming from, and it's nothing new. It isn't original by any barometer. That said, I don't know to what extent stuff like this works. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know if showing a girl who lives in some lower
That's all,
middle
yeah.
class sort of, part of town using Kama Ayurveda, which is a luxury product and has, luxury, literally luxury Ayurveda written in their tagline. I don't know if that match, really was made in heaven.
I
So
agree.
some of the integrations seemed a little stupid and out of place. But I think in leveraging good content and OTT platforms to drive success. We discussed this about Masaba's integration for her own collection within Masaba, right? We discussed this last week, but you're seeing formulas like this come up, and honestly, as long as the content is good, ki farak penda hai, right? Whether you
Yeah.
took advertising money for it or not. What do you think?
I feel at some point, and this is a question you got to think about in two lenses, right? One is it, are you trying to make it top of mind for the audience who's going to watch it? So even if the
Hmm.
character doesn't necessarily fit into, let's say like, I think Kama Ayurveda is a great example, right? Not necessarily doesn't fit in the character in the movie, but I guess fits the audience who's going to watch the movie. And at
Yeah.
that lens, maybe it makes sense to position it there. So is it so that you can make it top of mind? And I think the good part is they didn't make it. I mean, it was pretty much in your face, but I think they didn't overdo it. My classical example was, I think, Krish 3, where they actually had an entire sequence which is like an ad for an ice cream in between the movie. Literally, like, क्या आपने, if I remember right, was it Dinshaw's or one of those ice creams? क्या आपने Dinshaw's ice cream खाया है? कितना लाजवाब है. All that stuff was happening in the movie, in the middle of the movie. I'm like, what is going on? And the cello pen, I think, is the way he beats Vivek Oberoi, the villain, if I remember right, because it has a specific crystal
Jesus.
inside for its ink,
Oh my
which
God.
once sun rays go through, they kind of go through this prism and become a laser. So like they use that pen as an actual plot point in the movie and stuff like that. But this didn't feel as blatant as that. It was there. You remembered the brand profile. Do you have an IMDb profile, Suchita? In my lovely
Oh
way to
my
segue every time.
God. No, I don't have an IMDb profile, but after reading the story, I might as well make one. I might as well make one.
What is this story? Please explain what has happened. What is up with IMDb?
Yeah, now you're forcing me to pay attention. Okay, fine, guys. I am reading this out. Many young Indian men from small towns are gaming the system to manufacture their own fake online clout. Basically,
Are
long
you so,
story
one second,
short,
one second. They're showing that
what?
they're actors, that they're directors and producers and stuff like that. Is that what they're doing online? Which
Huh,
is interesting,
obviously,
right?
what else will they be doing?
It's like Wikipedia, and if you, and I think it's an extension of Wikipedia. I never realized IMDb was individual. I didn't realize individual can put it up. It wasn't like done by, let's say, the producers or anything like that. Interesting.
No, it's like it's a crowdsourced platform, but unlike Wikipedia, where you can see who edited what, and also like
Hmm.
Wikipedia has a really strong community sort of layer behind it, right?
Uh,
IMDb doesn't have any of these community layers, which really ensure authenticity of information. So basically, that's what this article is about, and it's not new, man. Like in an era of bots, and also in an era of avatars, right, where everyone
hmm.
wants this idyllic version of who they are sitting somewhere online. Stuff like this is bound to happen. In fact, the other story that we guys had discussed was how LinkedIn is having similar issues where
Yeah.
apparently Binance, it shows Binance has 7,000 employees, but Binance actually only has 70 or 40 employees, or some such absurdly low
Wow.
number in reality. So you can see the number of people wanting to flex that they worked at Binance, and which
Hmm.
HR person is actually sitting and calculating the length and breadth of this from top to bottom. So, long story short, this story is a little wild, but
I think
understandable.
faking your credentials is. I mean, obviously LinkedIn is a lot more serious in this sense. But I guess if you're in this space, if you're in the interviewing space, an IMDb profile is what you're going to send out to everyone. If you can fake that, and I think the story talks about how people have kind of like looked at music credits into their IMDb profiles, and you're only getting charged 2,500 rupees to do this. Come on, I can be the next director of the next Spiel Marvel movie. That's what my IMDb is going to be. Varun Suchita, director, Marvel
Yes,
what Untitled project.
of course. Please try that once because you are so
Jealously, please send
anonymous.
us
No
the
one will know
links.
that that's a lie.
But how do you kind of? I'm just thinking, is this onto the platforms to kind of tone this one down, or
Hmm.
do a crackdown, or is it because at some point these are like kind of open ended, and I know the fact is that if you're able to see edits being done, then that helps as well. But is it onto the companies or onto the platform? Because it should be the companies, right? If you're a company or a movie, etc., if you're on the platform, then you got to kind of like at some point take it off and you got to have this thing about being verified. I'm guessing is the better way to do it.
So that's one way to do it. We also heard about Elon Musk, though it must have been an excuse, but we heard him talk about how there are so many bots on Twitter. So what really
Yeah.
is Twitter's, monthly active or daily active user count, and Instagram has also sort of, gone through this whole cleanup. I think it's part both, but most importantly, the one thing that's needed is like digital media literacy. I think people and you see that happen even through these, petty scams that take place, right? Like those people messaging you saying, "I am Nigerian prince," and the next thing
Yeah.
some 2,000 people have been catfished out of a shit ton of money because of these, random internet scams. So, long story short, I think there definitely needs to be more than a larger crackdown, just digital media literacy, where people are able to, distill swaths of information with much more specificity than before. It's like, I don't know about you, but I've started like triple fact checking everything that I find online, unless it's from a credible source, which is why you're also
Yeah.
seeing like a rise of publishers more than ever before, right? Because in moments of uncredibility, you look for anchors of truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, but my 2 cents on this, who the mandate of keeping a check on all of this lies on is secondary, but what's extremely important is an individual educating themselves on what is legit or not. It's like that story of Nidhi Razdan getting catfish in her own way,
Yeah.
and can you imagine like someone who is literally the media,
Yeah.
not being able to read through the lines. That story was
Yeah.
also just absurd.
Yeah, there's so much of that happening. So I guess our warning to people is please be careful. And if you're making profiles, don't copy the same stuff as these people have who kind of got caught with this. Is that they all that person who was doing it gave them all as the whole credentials of cast and crew of the same movie, and they all supposedly have their own Google Knowledge Panel, which I don't understand what that means. What is a Google Knowledge Panel?
I
Do you know
don't
what that
know.
means?
Is that a trick question?
I don't know. It is right here. I didn't know what it was, but I will let the if you are a listener and you know what a Google Knowledge Panel is, please tweet to us and tell us what it is, and
This
we
should
will
have just been a
respond and say
UGC episode. Users, tell us what you think we should do. We've gone through
this is
the
what
world's
happens when you
longest
record an episode after
introduction.
a long weekend. This is
Yeah,
what
that's
happens. This is
true.
what
Yeah,
happens.
we're not like in our state of Adam Newman flow,
So
but we'll be
so if
back in our
we
state of Adam Newman flow next week.
so that we don't stretch this any further, we'll take our final break and be right back with recommendation. Welcome back to Think Fast. What is your recommendation of the week, Sujita? We are closing this episode with your recommendation. What
Oh
is
my
it?
God. I will re recommend the same thing I recommended 2 weeks ago, I think. But please watch The Bear. What a masterpiece. Oh my God. What a
Masterpiece.
fantastic show. So good, so good, so good. Yeah. But The Bear, which you will have to do a quick Google search of Watch The Bear online and knock yourself out, ladies and gents. I will re recommend The Bear. I think it's that good a show. What about you,
In
bro?
the spirit of re-recommending, because I turned 40 and people who are listeners, you since you enjoy my company and and listen to what I talk about, please, if you have not yet bought it, buy my book. It's called Everything is Out of Syllabus. It's right there. If you're watching this in video, it's an amazing book. It is still on Amazon and it's still as much fun to read as it was before. If you have bought a copy, buy one more for your friends and family. And that is it for my self-professed request for birthday gift, because my book is still selling though.
Amazing. Why is that surprising you? You have for someone who is that narcissistic, I thought you'd say, obviously, bro, my book is selling. It's number one. It's crushing it. It's killing it.
It's doing well, but I wanted to do better. So if you're a listener and
Of
have not bought my
course.
book, why have you not? Please buy it and read it, and then don't pass it on to another person. Buy another book for the other person.
Okay. Great plug. And with that, it's an episode of a very long introduction and
The
repeat
introduction is finally over.
recommendations.
We're finally over with the
Woohoo!
recommendation. Yes, and we promise, jealous me, the next time we will come back with more information so that you don't throw shit at us through the chat box.
Yes.
Toodles.
No, but bro, I mean, let's ask our listeners to send us questions because those
Yes.
listener question episodes are super fun.
If you guys have stayed in this late into this episode and wondering when will this introduction end and when will actual stories come, surprise for you, we need questions from you. So please send in questions. You can just @ either of us on Twitter or Instagram, or you can just DM IVM podcast as well, and we'll pick a few. We'll answer them, and maybe we even get you on a call if we can do that at some point of time.
Ooh, we should. We should.
Okay, that's
And
it.
with that,
That's it.
bye
We're calling it a day.
bye.
Bye bye.
See ya.
Toodles. Bye bye.